What up, y'all? I'm Tyler, and this is Movie News Recap, where we talk anything and everything related to movie news. And last night, I got the chance to watch Captain America: Brave New World, the newest entry into the Captain America franchise of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I got my review for y'all right here. In Captain America: Brave New World, we follow Sam Wilson, formerly known as the Falcon, after the events of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as he has to take up the mantle of Captain America and defend the world against an international war, villains from the MCU's past, as well as attacks on those close to him. Now, that's all I can tell you guys about the plot without giving you guys any spoilers, but with that being said, I do not understand where all the hate for this movie is coming from. Yes, it is not the MCU's best movie, and yes, it has its flaws, but it's still a fun little movie, and I feel like people are hating on this movie way too much. I enjoyed my screening of it a lot. My theater did enjoy the screening of it a lot, and I don't understand where all this hate's coming from. So in this review, I'll be telling you what I loved about this movie, why I think you should go see it, and maybe addressing some of those criticisms that people are giving it and why I don't think they're that big of a deal. Starting out, Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson killed in this role. He did amazing. I think his performance was better than the movie itself, and I still enjoyed the movie, but he did amazing. And I truly believe that Sam Wilson can be Captain America now, even though I wasn't sold after his entire show. This movie completely sold me. He did amazing. On top of that, his buddy, Danny Ramirez, is the actor playing the Falcon. The Falcon I absolutely loved in this movie as well. He is such a joy to see on screen. He's so funny, so heartwarming, and he just leaves you with a smile every time he's on screen, and I just need more of him in the next movie. He made me so happy to see, and he just gave me a laugh every time I saw him. Moving on from that, though, we're going into one of the villains, and that is Harrison Ford playing Thunderbolt Ross. If you didn't know, Thunderbolt Ross was recast into Harrison Ford because the former actor has passed away, sadly. But with that being said, I do love Harrison Ford's performance in this. He brought a lot more emotion than before to this role. My only complaint about his version of this character is it did feel like Harrison Ford playing Thunderbolt Ross, not just Thunderbolt Ross in the movie. He definitely had some of his Harrison Fordisms in this. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. If you don't really know, you're probably not going to notice it in the movie, and it's not going to be that big of a deal. We also had Isaiah Bradley in this movie, and I actually loved him in this movie because he had such a personal connection with Sam Wilson, being a black Captain America, that it added such a deeper connection to the plot. And whenever stuff happens to him, I'm not going to mention what happened, but when something happens to him in the movie, Sam Wilson definitely takes this as a personal attack, which deepens the plot and the stakes for this movie, which makes it feel a lot more personal to Sam, which I like that, making it feel more like an actual personal movie for Sam. For some reason, another major role in this movie was the head of security for President Ross, played by an actress named Shira Haas. I just gotta say, there was no reason for her to be in this movie whatsoever. Every point she was there, if you took her out, the movie wouldn't have changed. Her actual performance in the movie was not that great, and the reason for her being there, I never understood. There was no point for her to even be in this movie. It was just an extra role in here to kind of clutter the plot. So with that being said, that's not a jab at the actress herself. I'm not familiar with her work. She might be a great actress, but this role was just not it, and there was no point for her to be in this movie. But coming up behind that, we have one of the best actors alive in the world in this movie, and that's Giancarlo Esposito, and he was wasted in this movie. One of the best actors in our world is given a little third-rate villain role for no reason. The thing is, though, is that they did leave it open for him to return, but even if he does, I don't see what they're going to do with Giancarlo Esposito to make it worth being Giancarlo Esposito in this role. He is an amazing actor, and this villain isn't that worth it. I did love his character in this movie, and he did have a decently cool action scene against Sam, but there's not a point for him to be there either. And you just wasted Giancarlo Esposito in a random Captain America movie, and I don't understand that. Cast him as Professor X or Magneto or Norman Osborn or something. I don't get it at all. And that's not the only thing that doesn't make sense to me, because we also had the leader hinted at in the original 2008 Incredible Hulk movie come into this movie, and he looks stupid. That's the best I can say. He looks stupid. Now, with that being said, his character is actually seeming pretty threatening in the first act and a half. I do like that. But whenever you see him, he just looks stupid. And with a team the size of Marvel Studios, you would have thought they had enough money and resources and people to come up with a better design than they did. And a little heads up, if you do have little kids, the design might scare them a little bit, but it's not that bad. As for the story, I was actually really digging the vibe that they were going for. This Winter Soldier political thriller-esque style of storytelling was really, really cool, especially in the MCU where we've become so accustomed to this multiversal, fantastical aspect of the world. Seeing this Winter Soldier grounded style movie was so, so good. I loved that part of it. And the fact that there was actual, like, stakes in this movie and, like, Cap got his butt handed to him a couple times, and you actually were kind of worried about the Falcon a couple times, that it made me actually like invested in the story, and I really liked that and appreciated that with the movie. My biggest problems with the story and the plot itself actually comes from the villains, the leader and Red Hulk, just because of how they ended the movie with these two. Because both of their introductions were really, really good, especially the leader. The first act and a half, they made him seem so, like, threatening and malicious that you were, like, actually worried about what he was gonna do. And I get it, like, he's not a, like, brawny villain, he's, like, a mind power villain. But, like, at the same time, there was no real threat whenever he met Cap, because at that point when he was face to face with Cap, there wasn't really a problem or a like reason for him to do anything. And same thing with Red Hulk. We get him and we get a fight. And we actually get an awesome fight with Sam, but then the fight kind of just ends and it's very unsatisfying. But I think the problem with these villains wasn't the villains themselves, because they were actually good villains and their performances were really good as well. And the story that they were building up for these villains was also really good. I think the problem is probably the reshoots having to be like shoehorned into this movie made the pacing whack from the beginning, that by the time they got to the last 20 minutes, they didn't really have the screen time left to give us a satisfying ending for either one of these villains, that they kind of just like said, all right, here you go. There's the end of the movie. And it didn't really feel earned or satisfying. But the buildup of the rest of the movie almost like contradicted that, to where I was still satisfied with the movie at the end, just not really the aspects of where these two villains ended by the end of the movie, if that makes sense. But with that being said, I do love the fact that this plot actually brought back the interconnectedness of the MCU. This movie ties in the Incredible Hulk, Civil War, technically Endgame with Sam being Cap, as well as Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Eternals all into this one movie. We haven't had that level of connectedness since pre-Endgame, and that makes me so happy to see that we're connected, and it's not just cameos and Easter egg bait, but it's actually like building upon itself into a plot that's actually impacting the overarching story of the MCU. With this being a Captain America movie, these movies are almost best known for their high quality action sequences. And although the action in this movie is not the best part, I think it's not the worst either, because the aerial action scenes in this movie are amazing, and the final fight with Red Hulk is awesome, and the CGI in that looks amazing. And I forgot how much I love a raging Hulk. Seeing Red Hulk, I need Bane to be back to that type of Hulk. But with that being said, I also love the choices they used for the hand-to-hand combat with Sam. Because the way he brings in his wings and his drone Red Wing, I love the choices they made with that. But my biggest problem was the fact they were editing too much. Somebody in the edit room got pretty trigger happy, I gotta say, because in the scene in the White House, they were editing so much, I almost got lost at one point on what characters we were following because we were jumping around so much. But that did get better throughout the movie, and by the end of the second act, into the third act, it wasn't that big of a problem anymore, and I could just sit back and enjoy the action sequences and not have to strain to decide who we are following anymore, which I was happy about. Now, with that being said, it is not on par with Winter Soldier or any of those others. It is definitely lower than that, but it is not bad action sequences that it was getting like grilled on in the first reactions. I still like the action sequences, and the choices that they used for Sam's fighting style were actually super unique, and I just have to give them props for what they did there. As I mentioned earlier, I actually really liked the tone and political thriller vibe that this movie was going for. I think they hit most of the Winter Soldier-esque marks that they were going for this movie on as well. And I actually really liked the amount of humor in this. It wasn't overdoing it and over the top like most Marvel movies have been. And yeah, Danny Ramirez's Falcon's only really point being there was being the sidekick in the comedic relief, but I think he wasn't overdone. By the end, I was laughing every time he came up, and I was actually wanting more, but I think they stopped at the right point. So I definitely want more of them in future projects, but I think they stopped at the right point for this movie. Now, with that being said, the biggest complaint I've seen about this movie is actually the fact that they're saying it's not hopeful enough. Captain America is supposed to be this beacon of hope, And this movie doesn't have that. And I have to disagree about that because I think that Sam Wilson is this beacon of hope, just not the same type that Steve Rogers was. And I don't think this was the type that people were expecting because I think his beacon of hope is almost an underlying theme and like moral message in this movie as well that I'm actually going to talk about. So in this, we actually get a quote that sums up this whole theme of hope, I think. I'm not going to mention who says it or when they say it, but they say that Steve Rogers was somebody that people could look up to. Sam is somebody that people can aspire to be. And I think that's the whole point. I mean, Sam is just a normal guy trying to protect the people that he loves and the American people at the same time. He's a guy out there trying to protect the world from superpower beings without having any superpowers of himself or a magic hammer. He's just got a metal bouncy shield and he's still protecting the world. And I think that what that quote is trying to tell us is that, yeah, just like Sam, we don't have superpowers. But Sam without superpowers went out there and he wasn't the best at what he does. He doesn't have those powers. But he did the best job he could do. And I think that's the message that this movie was trying to give us is, yeah, we don't have to be the best at what we're doing to do the best that we can do. And I think that's the message and that beacon of hope of this movie. And this movie gets dark. I mean, at one point, there is full on murder multiple times. The world is about to go to war. And sensitivity warning if this like messes with you. But at one point, a guy like pops himself. But throughout all of this, Sam is this beacon of hope that whenever you see him come on the screen, you feel like there's going to be a good ending to this movie. Because this movie gets dark and gritty, but every time you see that red, white, and blue suit come out, you think that there's going to be a good ending. And I think that's the point. So yeah, to quote General Ross in this movie, yeah, Sam's no Steve Rogers. But I don't think he has to be. He has to be the Captain America that brings that beacon of hope, and he did. All right, guys, but that's all my thoughts and opinions on Captain America Brave New World. Now, coming in for my actual rankings and review of this movie, though, I think I have to give the plot a solid B+, because I did like these political thriller aspects that they threw in here, and there was actual real stakes. Now, is it the best storytelling, and are all the lines and dialogue perfect? No. But I did like the actual direction the story went enough to give it a B+. When it comes to the action here, I think I'm going to have to give it a C+, because I did love the aerial action sequences and the Red Hulk sequences, and I love the way that they incorporated Sam's wings into his fighting style. But I don't think that was enough to bring it any higher because of just how much that first half of the movie's cutting and editing really scarred me. It just really messed with me there, and I can't give it any higher. But whenever it comes to the horror aspect here, heads up to the parents, I am giving this an F. There's nothing terrifying or actually horrific in this movie. But if you do have little kids you're planning on taking, the leader's design might scare them. It is a somewhat disturbing design, so just a heads up there. But as my overall score for the MCU's fourth Captain America movie in this franchise, Captain America Brave New World, I do have to give this movie 3.5 stars. Does Brave New World soar above the Marvel standard? No, but that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. You just gotta know going in that your standards can't be too high. It's not gonna be an in-game movie, but it's still a fun time, and it's a great action-grounded movie that Anthony Mackie performed his butt off in and proved that he is a good Captain America. Just make sure whenever you go in that you understand or at least have a general idea of what happened in the 2008 Hulk movie and what happened in the Disney Plus series Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But that's all I have for my review of Captain America Brave New World. But don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. But until next time, I'm Tyler. Take care.